Jason had always been a close friend, someone I trusted like a brother. But one evening changed everything. It was a family gathering, and I had invited Jason, believing he would respect the people who had always welcomed him warmly. Instead, he mocked my father's old-fashioned ways, laughed at my mother's accent, and made cruel jokes about my younger brother's stutter in front of everyone. I could see the hurt in their eyes, the silent pain they endured just to keep the peace. That night, as I sat alone in my room, my anger burned deep. Jason had crossed a line. For weeks, I kept my distance. I thought maybe he would realize his mistake and apologize. But Jason acted as if nothing had happened. When I confronted him, he shrugged and said, "Come on, man, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." That was the moment I decided he had to learn a lesson. Not through shouting, not through violence, but through something he would never forget. Months passed, and I heard the news: Jason was getting married. His wedding was set to be a grand affair, a luxurious event where he would be the center of attention, basking in the admiration of hundreds of guests. That's when the idea struck me. If Jason loved anything more than himself, it was his image. And I was going to shatter it. I spent weeks gathering information. I dug into his past, his relationships, his dealings with people who once trusted him. I talked to old friends, ex-girlfriends, even some colleagues. What I found shocked me. Jason had a history of deceit. He had cheated on his fiancée, Rachel, multiple times. He had borrowed money from friends and never returned it. He had spread lies to manipulate people for his own benefit. And now, he was standing on the verge of a perfect life, built on deception. The wedding day arrived. Dressed in my best suit, I walked into the grand hall, filled with beautifully decorated tables, shining chandeliers, and a sea of well-dressed guests. Jason was standing at the front, looking like the perfect groom, smiling confidently as if the world belonged to him. Rachel, his bride, looked stunning in her white gown, her eyes filled with love and trust. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. As the ceremony began, the priest asked if anyone had an objection. The room was silent. I stood up. Gasps echoed through the hall. Jason's face turned pale. Rachel looked confused. The priest hesitated, but I stepped forward, my voice calm and steady. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but before this wedding continues, there's something everyone should know." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speakers. A recording played, Jason's voice, laughing as he bragged to his friends about how easily he could manipulate Rachel, about how she was just another conquest. More recordings followed, conversations with ex-girlfriends he had been seeing behind Rachel's back, messages where he mocked his own fiancée, calling her naive and too trusting. Rachel's expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to heartbreak. The guests whispered among themselves, their admiration for Jason turning into disbelief and disgust. His parents looked horrified. Jason tried to speak, to explain, but the damage was done. Rachel pulled off her ring and threw it at him. "You disgust me," she whispered before walking away. The hall erupted into chaos. Jason's perfect day had crumbled before his eyes. His reputation was shattered, his future destroyed in a matter of minutes. As I walked out, I felt no guilt, no remorse. He had disrespected my family without a second thought. Now, he knew what it felt like to be humiliated, to have everything taken away in an instant. Did I go too far? Maybe. But some lessons can only be learned the hard way.